People oftentimes tell me that they don't like having fractions in equations. My response to that is, well, if you don't like them, the very first thing to do is to get rid of them. In this particular equation, I have x divided by 2 plus 7 is equal to 12. Since it's divided by 2, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I am going to multiply by 2. The only thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that you multiply everything on both sides of the equation by 2. And you can see that I've done that by putting x over 2 plus 7 inside that set of parentheses. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to apply the distributive property. 2 times x over 2 means that the 2's cancel out and I am just left with x. But remember that 2 only canceled with the very first term, x divided by 2. I still need to use the distributive property and multiply 2 times 7. 2 times 7 is equal to 14. So I have x plus 14 now is equal to 24. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides. When I subtract 14 from both sides, my final answer is x is equal to 10. Many times you will have more than one fraction in an equation, as you have in the case that I have here. The concept, though, stays the same. I want to go through and I want to get rid of the fractions. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I am going to multiply both sides. This time, though, I'm going to multiply both sides by the least common multiple of my denominators. My denominators are 4 and 3. And the least common multiple of 4 and 3 is 12. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to multiply both sides by 12. And then I'm going to use the distributive property again as I go through and do this. I am going to multiply 12 times the entire term that I have here, x plus 2 over 4. When I do that, the 12 and the 4 cancel each other out. I'm left with 3, and then still in parentheses, x plus 2. I still need to go through and I need to multiply the 12 times the 2x plus 3 over 3. And in this case, the 12 and the 3 cancel out, leaving me with a 4. So I have 4 times 2x plus 3. Once again, keeping that inside my set parentheses, is equal to 144. Notice what happened when I multiplied by the least common multiple of the denominators. I got rid of all the fractions in the problem. If you go through and do that and don't get rid of all the fractions, that tells you that you made a mistake somewhere in your math calculations. Now I'm back to a problem with parentheses. Before I solve it, I'd like you to pause this video, solve it yourself, and then start up the video again and see how I go through and solve it. Just so you know, the answer to this is x is equal to negative 30. Okay, hopefully you've had time to go through and solve this problem. This is what I would do to go through and solve this problem. The very first thing I want to do is get rid of the parentheses. So I am going to apply the distributive property and I'm going to multiply the 3 times the x and the 3 times the 2. And I am going to rewrite that as 3x plus 6 subtract. And then I need to multiply the 4 times the 2x and the 4 times the 3. So it is subtract 8x, 4 times 2x is 8x, and it is subtract 12. Remember, this subtraction sign applies to everything that is inside that set of parentheses, which means that this needs to be subtract 12. And then I have that equal to 144 on the right-hand side. Now I'm going to go through and I am going to combine any like terms that I have. I have 3x subtract 8x, which is a negative 5x. I have 6 subtract 12, which is subtract 6, which is equal to 144. Now I'm down to a two-step problem. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. If I add 6 to both sides, I am going to end up with negative 5x on the left-hand side equal to 150 on the right-hand side. And then dividing both sides by negative 5, I'm going to have a final answer, as I said before, at x is equal to a negative 30. I want to do several more examples of these types of problems, and here I have one, but maybe it would be a good idea for you to write this problem down, pause this, and then go through and work the problem through yourself, and then turn this back on again and watch me as I do it. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to go through and do this particular problem. The answer that you should have gotten would have been x is equal to negative 6. So if you didn't get that, once again you might want to recheck your work again, but I am going to go through and do this problem. The very first thing I'm going to do when I go through and do this is I'm going to get rid of the denominators. So as I take a look at the denominators, the least common multiple of 8, 3, and 4 is 24. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by 24. So you can see I'm putting 24 in parentheses for each one of these. And now I'm going to use the distributive property for these. So 24, first of all, times x over 8. The 24 and the 8 cancel each other out. I'm left with 3x. And then I still need to multiply the 24 times the 1, so I get 3x subtract 24. On the right hand side, I'm going to multiply the 24 first of all by the x over 3. And once again, the 3 and the 24 cancel each other out, leaving me with an 8x. And then I need to multiply the 24 times 1/4, and 24 times 1/4 is equal to 6. So notice once again I have gotten rid of my fractions, my fractions as I went through and did that. Now I'm just going to go through and solve this for x. So I'm going to go through and get rid of 8x on this side, and perhaps you did a different way, it won't really matter. So on this side now I have negative 5x subtract 24 is equal to 6. And now I want to go through and add 24 to both sides, getting the constants together. So I get negative 5x is equal to 30, which gives me that final answer of x is equal to a negative 6. Here's another one that you can practice, and they really do not get any more difficult than this. So if you are able to run through and do this, you are doing very well. Once again, just so you know, the answer to this again is negative 6 as you work through it. But I'll let you go through and work through it first, and then turn this back on again, please. Okay, once again, hopefully you've had a chance to go through and do this. If I were going to do this, I'm going to multiply both sides by 18, which is my least common multiple of my denominators. So I'm going to put an 18 on the outside of both of these, and then go through and use the distributive property. First of all, I'm going to multiply the 18 times this very first term, x plus 7 over 2, and the 18 and the 2 cancel each other out, leaving me with 9. So I have 9 times, then in parentheses, x plus 7, subtract. Now I need to multiply the 18 times the 1/3, and 18 divided by 3 gives me 6. So on the left-hand side I have 9, and then in parentheses, x plus 7 minus 6. On the right-hand side, I'm going to multiply the 18 times the 1/2, which is equal to 9, subtract, and then I have the 18 again divided by the 9. They cancel each other out, leaving me with a 2. So I have 2 and then x plus 9. And remember, this subtraction sign that I have in front of the 2 is very important. My next step is to work through and get rid of the parentheses. So when I do that, now I'm going to have 9x plus 63 subtract 6 is equal to 9 subtract 2x. And this is where a lot of people will make a mistake. Remember, it is subtract 18 because this subtraction sign applies to everything that is in there. So now if I want to go through and start to get some like terms together. This left-hand side is 9x plus 57 equals 9 subtract 18 is negative 9 subtract 2x. And now I'm going to go through and I'm going to add 2x to this side so I can get the variables together, which means I need to add 2x to this side. So now I have 11x plus 57 is equal to negative 9. I'm going to subtract 57 from both sides, leaving me with 11x is equal to a negative 66. So as I said, x is equal to negative 6. Before ending this video, I do want to talk for a moment about decimals. And you can see I have a problem here with decimals, and certainly to go through and solve this we could just add 4.25 to both sides, and with the use of a calculator and things this would not be a very hard problem to solve if you went through that two-step process. But decimals are somewhat similar to fractions, and there is another way you could do that. Since this particular decimal goes out to hundredths place and this one also goes out to hundredths place, I could, if I wanted to, I could go through and multiply both sides by 100. If I multiply both sides by 100 and then use the distributive property, 100 times 2.3 is 230 and giving me my x, then 100 minus 4.25 gives me minus 425. And then I multiply the 100 times the 0.35 and I get equals 35. Just like when I multiplied by the least common multiple of the denominators with fractions, doing this gets rid of the decimals. And some people like that a little bit better because they don't like decimals. I just want to mention that to you as a possibility. If you want to do that, you could go through and do this. Just to finish off this problem now, if I added 425 to both sides of this, I'm going to get 230x is equal to 460 and x is equal to 2. So I just wanted to point out another way of solving problems when you are dealing with decimals. As with all the other videos in this module, there is a quick check for you to work on next that will help you determine your understanding of the material. There is also a supplemental sheet of problems and web links you can look at if you wish. If you feel comfortable with this concept after doing the quick check and looking at the other information, you may be ready to take the quiz on this module. This is one section over my years of teaching this that a number of people do struggle with though, so please let me know if I can assist you in any other way. Thank you.